Hey guys, how's it going? So UFC 316 just wrapped up and I'm going to give you a rundown of the whole card and what happened this event, so let's just jump straight into it. And starting off with the first fight on the card, opening the early prelims, was Marquel Mederos versus Mark Choinski. So I said that Marquel Mederos was going to get this one done. I said by a decision win. And I was actually correct. Mederos looked very good this fight. He sort of beat a very good up-and-comer within another promotion in this. Breaking it down, round one, Mederos is visibly just better in the striking. He's landing nice combos on Choinski while pushing him back against the cage. Around halfway through the round, Choinski shoots him for takedowns, which is where he usually succeeds. And while he doesn't get Mederos fully down, he ends up taking the back of a standing Mederos and getting close to locking in a rear naked choke. But when it returns to the feet, Mederos closes out the round with some more good striking. Definitely his round. Round two starts with Choinski looking better in the striking, but very quickly Mederos just starts picking it up and inflicts some pretty big damage to the face of Choinski, as well as constantly targeting the lead leg of Choinski. And with 2 minutes left, Choinski shoots him for a takedown but gets denied. Mederos keeps taking the leg out from under him with calf kicks. He'd sort of kick the leg and Choinski would go down. Obvious his round as well. And then in round three, very early in the round, Choinski gets his legs taken out from under him again with another calf kick. And on the ground, he gets kicked at even more. He's sort of pulling guard and he ends up getting his legs kicked at and even stomped on at one point. And he somehow made it back to the feet. I don't know how. He does have a few moments on the feet for the remainder of the round, and he almost submits Mederos on the ground later in that round. But the compromised front leg really put a limit on how much he was able to do back to Mederos, and Mederos ultimately took a pretty dominant 30-27 decision for this one. Pretty good fight to open up the card, and next fight on the card. And the next fight in the early prelims is Quillan Salkilld versus Yanal Ashmouz. So I said that Quillan Salkilld was going to win that one by a round 2 KO. I just thought his striking would be better. He might have got beat in the wrestling, but I just thought his striking would pull him through. He did actually win this one, but it's by a decision, and he implemented a lot more wrestling than I initially thought he would. So round one opens up, and Ashmouz comes out very hot in the striking. He sort of pushes Salkilld up against the cage, and then when he gets him there, he takes him down. But very quickly, Salkilld just gets back up again and takes Ashmouz down himself, where he controls him from the sort of back control. And when it gets into a clinch, he dominates him there as well, throwing knees to the body and just pushing him back. And from there, Salkilld just takes Ashmouz down multiple times. I think it was twice in the first round. One where he just picks up Ashmouz and then just slams him down. Very clear round for Salkilld following that first moment. Round two very quickly becomes a wrestling match, and while Ashmouz is usually the one dominating the wrestling, Salkilld looked amazing this whole fight in the wrestling, consistently taking him down, holding him there, even reversing takedowns from Ashmouz and ending up in dominant position. And outside of a moment at the end of the round where Ashmouz tries to get Salkilld in a submission, there isn't really any moment where Salkilld looks like he was losing, so clear round for him again. Round three, there's a worrying moment early in this round where Ashmouz is pushing forward and starting to tag Salkilld with some big shots. He sort of forces him to panic shoot, but Salkilld recovers and ends up taking him down easily and controlling him again. At the end of the round, it turns into a bit of a striking battle, and Ashmouz is landing some decently hard shots. He ends up slipping over though when he throws a kick and really can't do anything else to finish the fight. In the end, Salkilld took it by a decision very convincingly, and this was one of Salkild's best performances. He looked amazing in the wrestling, an area that everyone was sort of questioning. And even on the striking, he was doing very, very decent. Yeah, very, very good performance, very fun fight. And next fight on the early prelims. And the next fight on the early prelims was an absolute banger. Jeka Saragih versus Joosang. So I said that Joosang was going to get it done by a first round KO. And I got it bang on. Breaking it down, round one opens up and Yu comes out looking very confident. He's sort of light on his feet. He's staying on the back foot, but while he's doing that, he's sort of tagging Serghei with these shots as he'd push in. And 30 seconds into the fight, he lands a perfectly timed left hook that was just brutal. It made this slapping noise, and it just put Saragih out cold, sends him face first into the canvas. Incredible debut from Yu. I didn't really think he was going to have this dominant of a performance, because I didn't really view his prior fights as the hardest level competition. But man, he looks like he could really be something within the division, and he looked very, very, very comfortable that fight as well. There was never really a moment where he froze up or the UFC pressure got to him. He was light on his feet, bouncing around, staying on the outside, circling around, and just saw a moment and took it. Very, very good performance from him. Yeah, next fight. And closing out the early prelims, we had Ariane de Silva versus Wang Cong. I thought I'd take a risk and pick de Silva. I was a bit worried about Wang Cong's wrestling, and I thought de Silva would have what it takes to sort of get her to the ground and submit her. I was very wrong. Wang Cong won this one by a very dominant decision. Round 1, a fairly even first round where both fighters are sort of choosing to strike at their own pace. De Silva's sort of kicking from distance while Kong's sort of catching her on the feet every now and then. And usually it is one-way traffic from Cong, but de Silva was putting up a decently good fight in the first. However, late in that first round, Cong lands a calf kick that causes de Silva's leg to give out, and Cong follows up with a flurry of punches and secures the round pretty convincingly with that end moment. Round 2, de Silva can't really get anything going because whenever she would blitz in to land some shots, Cong would just chop at the leg and push her back again. But even outside of that, Cong was picking up in the striking this round and was landing some really hard shots. And then at around halfway through the round, she ends up dropping de Silva with a calf kick. Actually, I think this was further in, closer towards the end of the round. She drops Silva with a calf kick. There were a weird amount of calf kick sort of injuries this fight. But either way, she secured that round. And then round 3 opens up, and de Silva's best round for sure. She's landing clean on Cong throughout the round, but she is forced into a southpaw stance, which sort of minimizes the threat she presents because you can't really get much off from that southpaw stance, and then whenever she'd swap back to orthodox, Cong would just chop at the leg again and force her to switch back. De Silva was trying to get in a few takedowns this round, but I think it was a bit too late in the fight. I think she would have been a bit more successful if she started trying to implement them a bit earlier, and she was also getting clipped in the process of diving in for these takedowns. However, every now and then when de Silva would blitz in, she would get caught with a big shot over the top. And when it went to a decision, Cong ultimately took it. Pretty good win for Cong. She looked amazing on the feet. She is very entertaining to watch always. And this was against an opponent who missed weight by a pretty significant amount. So very good performance from Cong, and now we move on to the prelims. And now we arrive at the first prelim of the night, Khaos Williams versus Andreas Gustafsson. So I said that Khaos Williams was going to win this one by round 2 knockout. I just thought Gustafsson's pressure, heavy approach wouldn't be enough to win this fight, and I could 100% see Williams catching him while he tries to sort of pressure inwards. I was actually wrong. Andreas Gustafsson won this one by a very dominant decision. He absolutely beat the brakes off of Williams this fight. And breaking the fight down, round 1, both fighters come out swinging like crazy, but very quickly it gets taken to the cage where they sort of clinch. But when they're swinging at each other, they are just landing to kill. Eventually the ref separates it, and back on the feet, Gustafsson starts winning on the feet. He starts swinging for the heels and actually lands really heavy punches that somehow don't finish Williams, but they throw him off balance and stun him backwards. And from there, it very quickly gets back to the cage where not much else happens. Gustafsson lands some heavy punches and secures that round pretty convincingly. Round 2 opens up similar to the first, with a large portion of it being spent against the cage, and when it's on the feet, both fighters are swinging like crazy to sort of finish the fight. But this round was way more dominant for Gustafsson. He took down Williams a couple of times and landed some really brutal elbows from sort of ground and pound and from the clinch, cutting him open and sort of spilling blood everywhere. This is where he starts to turn the fight, and then in round 3, predictably, most of this round was against cage, but Gustafsson just kept landing these elbows and cut Williams open badly. At the end of the round, there was a moment where Gustafsson took Williams down and almost actually finished him with ground and pound. He was landing these heavy punches and elbows, while Williams slowly made his way back to the feet, but was getting caught with some big shots in the process. Overall, the decision rolls around and Gustafsson takes a win, with the judges giving him a 10-8 for presumably the 3rd round, I think it would be. Either way, very good performance from Gustafsson, and a pretty exciting fight. Next fight on the card. And next up on the card was Serghei Spivak versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. So I thought that Serghei Spivak was going to take this one by a round 3 submission. I just thought his wrestling, and especially off his back, his submission ability was sort of going to catch a sloppy Cortez in the later rounds. I was actually wrong. Waldo Cortez actually took this one by a decision win, although it was very close, and a lot of people are sort of arguing robbery. I don't think it was, but it was a very close fight. Round 1, Acosta starts investing in the front leg of Spivak early in the fight, but in the process is getting caught with these nasty sort of shots. And he gets hit with a head kick that hurts him pretty badly early in the fight. Spivak is generally landing better than Acosta for most of the round, but is also getting tagged by Acosta's stiff jabs and straights to the face. A very close round where both fighters were landing heavy on each other, but most likely Acosta won just due to the volume and the constant pressure he was putting on that fight. But honestly, you could really score it either way. Round 2 opens up and the round starts fairly even, sort of similar to the first. Spivak's kicking from distance, Acosta's landing the occasional punch. But Acosta started to take back the round later in the fight, where Spivak started slowing down, not really throwing as much, while Acosta's just constantly pushing forward, landing these big shots, and especially to the body as well. He starts ripping to the body this round, sort of trying to drain the gas tank of Spivak. And Spivak starts shooting in as well this round, and Cortez pretty much defends all of them perfectly. So pretty bad round for Spivak, definitely Acosta's round there. And then round 3 opens up, and early in the round Spivak lands big on Acosta, and while Acosta tries to play it off like it didn't really hurt, you could kind of tell that it did sort of wobble him a little bit, and he gets put up against the cage and hit with some more big shots. He sort of got punished for showboating and backing up. And for the rest of the round, Acosta is on the back foot, and Spivak's just pushing forward and trying to punish him, trying to finish him. And to secure the round, Spivak gets a takedown in the closing minutes where he slams Acosta into the canvas. But ultimately, Acosta takes the decision by taking the first 2 rounds. 2 was obviously his. First, I would argue, is his, but honestly, it was very, very close. But this was a pretty entertaining fight. It wasn't the best fight on the card, but it was still a pretty fun fight. Next fight on the card. Up next was Azamat Murzakanov versus Brenton Ribeiro. So I said that Azamat Murzakanov was going to take this one by a second round KO. He actually got it done a lot earlier in the fight. He got a first round TKO for this one, and it was a very, very one-way performance. In the first round, Ribeiro had a decently good start. He was whipping these kicks to all parts of the body of Murzakanov and really staying at range, so Murzakanov couldn't really throw anything back when he'd do this. But Murzakanov ends up closing the distance throughout the round, and when he finally gets into these sort of exchanges, he lands this one really nasty hook to the forehead of Ribeiro that sends him down to the canvas, where he just Murzakanov runs up, follows up with some really nasty ground and pound, to which the ref took a weirdly long time to stop. Ribeiro wasn't really defending himself or like even making an effort to get back up again, and Ribeiro actually ends up verbally tapping, and that's what caused the ref to stop this one. This one was a pretty dominant performance from Murzakanov. Ribeiro had his moments, but really it was just Murzakanov the whole way through the round. Very good performance, very good knockout or TKO. Yeah, not much else to say though. Next fight on the card. And now we're at the final prelim of the night, Bruno Silva versus Joshua Van. So I said that Joshua Van was going to win by a decision. I thought his striking was just going to be way better than Silva's, and anything Silva could do on the ground, I just saw Josh Van being able to sort of avoid or outperform. And I was correct about Josh Van winning, but he actually got it done by a third round TKO, which was very, very impressive. Round 1 opens up. Bruno Silva has a moment where he kicks at the calf of Van and sort of kicks him down. And if it seems like I've mentioned the fact that a fighter's been sort of kicked down with a leg kick or knocked down with, or slipped really, just sort of a lot of people falling down due to their legs giving out. It was a weird sort of thing that happened this fight. There were a lot of calf kick sort of knockdowns, but also a lot of slips. And one's going to be incredibly relevant later, so keep that in mind. But back to the fight, Silva's plan was really just to target the heavy front leg of Van. Van's boxing style makes him sort of put a lot of weight on his front leg, and he was sort of getting damaged. Silva was briefly finding success with these front leg kicks, but then Van just starts letting the hands go. He started catching Silva with counter shots around 3 minutes into the round, and knocked him down pretty badly. Followed up with some good ground and pound, but he couldn't get it done, and back on the feet, Van just kept pushing forward, tagging Silva with big shots, making that round pretty obviously his. Round 2 opens up, and early in the round, Silva tries to push forward on Van, even taking him down, but very quickly Van just gets back up to the feet and starts continuing this forward pressure, landing nicely on the head of Silva, mainly with counters. Silva would swing in with these massive overhands, overthrow, and then just get caught with a hook counter or something. And again, in this round, Van drops Silva and lands some really nice ground and pound as he's getting back up, but can't finish him. I think we've come to terms, Josh Van isn't really a finisher. He'll get a finish every now and then, but he is definitely a guy who just beats you down and breaks you throughout 3 rounds. And yeah, it was a very, very dominant round for him. The rest of the round, Silva's just trying to take Van down, but Van is just denying everything. And then in the closing moments, I almost forgot about this, Silva gets hit with a knee straight to the face that drops him again. So arguably you could actually give Van a 10-8 for this one. It was very, very dominant. And then same thing as the last 2 rounds in round 3. Van's walking forward, hitting Silva with stiff jabs, brutal counter hooks, just really everything. And while Silva throws back, Van's just using his head movement to get out of the way of anything Silva threw. And with a minute left, it all adds up, and sort of Silva gets backed up against a cage through taking so much damage. He holds up this high guard, he drops to the ground, and Van pushes in and finishes him with some ground and pound to get a TKO win for this one. Very, very, very good performance from Van. I'd argue he had one of the best performances of the card, in terms of just like how good he looked, and just how like the skill difference between opponents in this fight was crazy. He had amazing takedown defense, and honestly I think sometime soon we're going to see Josh Van in the top 5 because he looked incredible this fight. And now we make it to the main card, and opening the main card was Vicente Luque versus Kevin Holland. So I said that Vicente Luque was going to get this done by round 1 sub. I thought he was just way too dangerous for someone like Holland, who often sort of jokes around in his fights and sort of lets himself get caught in trying to sort of make the fight fun. I was actually wrong. Kevin Holland ended up submitting Vicente Luque in the second round of this fight, and it was a very surprising win, or at least in my opinion it was. So round 1, instantly the height and reach advantage is being used by Holland. He's keeping Luque at distance with sort of these straight shots, these jabs, these straights, making sure he can never really close into this sort of trading distance where Luque thrives. And this is an issue that we've seen with Luque throughout his career. He has huge amounts of troubles closing the distance with taller opponents, but once he does get in that distance, he is very, very dangerous. Early in the round, Luque jumps in for a single leg and ends up taking some nasty hammer fists to the side of the head for a decently long time. He holds onto this leg for a weirdly long time and just gets really damaged through Holland just landing these hammer fists while he's trying to single leg him. And Holland also lands this really nasty elbow to the side of the head of Luque, which caused some swelling and sort of dazed Luque, made him walk back. But to Luque's credit, he sort of pushed back forward after receiving that elbow and sort of tagged Holland with his own combo to sort of make Holland respect the power of Luque. Mainly that was his biggest sort of skill this fight. His counter shots were tagging Holland pretty badly whenever Holland would sort of hit him with something hard. But overall, I think Holland won that round pretty convincingly. Round 2, similar to the first, with Holland landing jab straight combos on Luque, and Luque getting taken down very early in that round. And from there, Holland pretty much locks in an anaconda choke with very little effort. Luque didn't really look that concerned when it was in. I guess he thought he could like sort of roll out of it, but he had a huge amount of trouble rolling out of it and ended up getting submitted by it. An anaconda choke in the second round. Very good performance for both fighters. Luque did look good that fight, but Holland just looked that much better. Holland looked a lot more locked in and like he was taking it seriously. And submitting Luque with an anaconda choke, that's no joke. That is very, very tricky to do. I think Luque came in with a worse game plan, and that's mainly what did him wrong. Holland came in with a pretty solid game plan, use his range, sort of don't let Luque get in close and strike with you. And yeah, it's kind of funny that he submitted Luque with a anaconda choke of all things. The thing that Luque holds a record for, getting the earliest anaconda choke in UFC history. But yeah, very, very fun fight to start the main card. And next up was Bautista versus Patchy Mix. I said that Patchy Mix was going to get it done by round 2 KO, and boy do I look like an idiot. Bautista ended up winning this one, and in very dominant fashion as well. Like, this sort of redeemed him from, you know, the Jose Aldo incident. I always knew Bautista was an exciting fighter, and that was sort of a one-off, but yeah, it was a really, really bad performance from Patchy Mix this fight. Breaking it down, round 1, Bautista comes out fast, he's bouncing around, he's tagging Patchy with some big shots early on. Patchy sort of being a bit more patient, but in that he does get tagged with some massive shots on the chin. But his chin's pretty good. He eats a few of these massive shots that I thought were going to knock him down, or at least daze him, but no reaction whatsoever. And it was very clear from the start of the fight that Bautista wasn't going to find a finish this fight, or was going to have a huge amount of difficulty if he was chasing one. But despite that, Patchy didn't throw anything. he was really stiff, he was awkward, he was flat-footed, he wasn't moving his head. It was really strange because in Bellator, Patchy, you know, he bounced around, he was very light on the feet, his head would be moving all over the place. He'd sort of use these unorthodox techniques, but here he was just walking forward as if he was like Sean Strickland. And he was just getting caught. He didn't throw anything back. The punch stats were very close, but watching it visually, Bautista was just landing way better. Round 2, pretty much the same thing. Mix just walks forwards, gets punched, with some pretty hard shots as well. His chin really carried him through this fight, and Bautista's just looking good. He's landing these stiff jabs, straights. He starts ripping the body in the second, which was probably draining his stamina. You couldn't really tell because Patchy Mix looked really stoic this fight, I guess is the way to put it. He would get tagged on the chin, not even get dazed. He'd take a kick or like a massive hook to the body, not even look fazed by it. But I do think this sort of like drained his stamina a little bit, and caused him to slow down even more. Because in the third round, Patchy he doesn't do anything. He tries to throw a takedown in, which is a good idea, I guess, but I think it's a bit late now. He is very solid in the grappling, but it ends up getting denied his takedown. And, you know, it's a bit late in the fight to start trying to wrestle with Bautista, who is also very good on the ground. This was probably his best round in the last minutes. He's sort of mixing it up and trying to take the round back. He's tagging Bautista and doing some very visible damage of his own on Bautista's face. But overall, it arguably was just an even round, and Patchy just looked good. Mario Bautista took that one, 30-27 decision in a completely dominant display, and I think this sort of puts Mario Bautista in the good books again. Very fun fight. Patchy Mix, bit of a disappointment. This wasn't really what we're used to seeing from him. Yeah, hopefully his next fight's a bit better. Next fight on the card. Up next, we had Kelvin Gastelum versus Joe Pyfer. So I said that Joe Pyfer was going to win this one. I actually said by round 1 sub, but I thought Kelvin Gastelum's chin was too good, so he'd have to resort to sort of submitting him once he got him knocked down. Pyfer won this one. It was by a decision. Yeah, so round 1 opens up very early in the round. Pyfer lands an absolute bomb to the side of Gastelum's head, drops him badly. Gastelum, to his credit, has a granite chin though, so he managed to get up and recover from that one. But later in that round, he also gets dropped with a head kick. No, sorry, he gets wobbled with a head kick. He gets dropped again with a straight down the middle. That threw him off balance and sort of knocked him down. Very convincing round for Pyfer. You could even make a good argument they 10-8'd Gastelum because Gastelum just didn't throw anything back that whole first round and just got knocked down and tagged. Round 2, pretty nothing burger of a round, honestly. Neither person really threw much. Gastelum was trying to close the distance and land stuff, but he was too scared to sort of get into that range of Pyfer. Meanwhile, Pyfer's just throwing power shots the whole time, which 90% of them are whiffing past the head of Gastelum. Although, especially at the end of this round, Pyfer slowed down significantly. He wasn't throwing anything except for maybe a power shot every 30 seconds. And about 2 of them landed, and they didn't even knock Gastelum down. Gastelum was sort of picking it up near the end of this round as well. He was landing his own combos, but he did get tagged with some big shots, so probably Pyfer's round. Round 3, Gastelum actually comes back this round with some really solid combos on Pyfer as he's moving backwards. Pyfer gets like sort of tagged on the chin as he's backing up. And in my prediction video, I did mention that Manson fight, and this was sort of similar to what happened here. The minute it sort of ticked into the third round, Gastelum was picking it up while Pyfer seemed like he had just given it all in the last 2. And he was losing this round pretty badly just through getting out technicaled. Gastelum was ducking in, making Pyfer swing at nothing, and then once Pyfer's arm was extended, he'd tag him with like a 3-piece combo to the head. Ultimately, Gastelum couldn't really do much though to sort of take back the fight. He probably won that round, but he couldn't take back the fight. And Pyfer ended up winning that one by a decision. But man, for Pyfer's next matchup, I am very worried that if it's a 5-round bout, Pyfer's going to lose, because he really struggles with the later rounds. He's a threat in the first and second, but the minute sort of you pass the second halfway point, he just becomes sort of a non-threat if you are smart about where your head placement is and you avoid all of his power shots. He doesn't really become that much of a threat anymore. So while it was a really good fight, really fun, entertaining, Very concerning for Pyfer, even though he won. But yeah, next fight on the card. And now we're at the co-main event for the Women's Bantamweight Championship of the World. Julianna Pena versus Kayla Harrison. So I said that Kayla Harrison was going to win this one by a decision. I thought that her judo and takedowns were just going to carry her through the fight. Nothing amazing, no real impressive striking moments from either fighter I predicted. I was actually right with Kayla Harrison winning, but she actually managed to finish the fight in the second round with a submission, which sort of took me off guard. I really thought this was going to go to a decision, but alas not. Round 1, on the feet, there isn't really any winner. Harrison's doing a bit more and looked a bit busier, but there was nothing really to put a statement on that round on the feet from either fighter. But it doesn't really matter because Harrison got Pena up against the cage and then used her judo to get her to the ground and just held her there. Pena somehow managed to get a point deduction within the first sort of 3 minutes of the fight. When Harrison has her on bottom position and sort of postures up to land some ground and pound, Pena doesn't land just one, not even two. She lands 3 illegal up kicks to sort of a grounded Harrison. And they deduct a point. There wasn't even a warning. It was pretty bad and blatant of a foul. This wasn't really like an accidental up kick. Like Pena sent 2 really strong up kicks to the chin of Harrison. In fact, it looked like she knocked Harrison out with the first one. Point deduction, 10-8 round for Harrison, even though Harrison didn't even really do anything that whole round except hold her down. So interesting way to start the fight. And then in round 2, it looked like it was just going to be a repeat of the first. Harrison was doing a bit better in the striking. She was constantly pushing forward and got Pena up against cage and then took her down again, sat on top. It was looking kind of bleak, but then on top, Harrison snuck in this Kimura like out of nowhere. The way it was sort of filmed from the upwards perspective, you couldn't actually really see it until you saw Pena's elbow poking out and sort of bend backwards. And then you noticed she got put in a Kimura. It was within the closing sort of 10-ish seconds of the round, and the clapper goes off, but Kayla Harrison is yanking this Kimura so hard that Pena has no other choice but to tap, otherwise she was probably going to get her arm broken. Very, very good performance from not Pena. God no. Very, very impressive performance from Harrison. Pena looked really bad this fight. If it seems like I'm skimming over this, I kind of am, because there is one big takeaway from this fight, and that's that Harrison did the impossible and managed to get Nunes back in the sport. That's honestly the biggest takeaway from this fight. Nunes is probably going to be back. It's verbally agreed to. Nunes says she's coming back, and I believe the UFC would 100% want her to come back and fight for the bantamweight belt again. It's just a matter of when, or whether, I guess, but when, more realistically, it's actually going to happen. But yeah, very, very excited. Congrats to Harrison for sort of getting this GOAT back into the sport. I think Harrison really sold this fight as she's coming to be the best in the world and sort of forced Nunes' hand in this. But yeah, very, very decently fun fight. You know, I'll give it that. Fine. And now we arrive at the main event, Merab Dvalishvili versus Sean O'Malley for the Bantamweight Championship of the World. This was a rematch between them after that sort of interesting performance at the Sphere from O'Malley and Merab sort of pulling off this major upset. And I 100% thought this was going to go the same way. I picked Merab to win this one by a decision. I thought it was just going to be a repeat of what happened at the Sphere. Honestly, I think style-wise, this was a very unfortunate matchup for O'Malley, and I don't know why O'Malley would want the rematch. But I did sort of add in that it was entirely possible that O'Malley could have caught Merab and put him away. That's the danger of O'Malley. You can't really count him out. But Merab took this one. Surprisingly, it wasn't by a decision. It was by a round 3 submission, and it was a pretty good submission at that. So breaking down the fight, round 1 opens up, and there's a lot of hype behind this fight instantly. You can tell the crowd are very excited to see Sean back. With all these improvements he's made to his life ever since that last Sphere performance where he had a torn labrum, and there were sort of all these excuses. Everyone was really excited to see in shape, fully focused Sean O'Malley. And surprisingly, in the first round, this fight stayed on the feet for a surprising amount of time, but especially in this first round, Merab didn't really shoot in for the first half of the round, and Sean sort of showed these majorly improved takedown defenses within the first round, denying 2 of Merab's takedowns. I think it was his first 2 takedowns Sean denied. But strangely, Merab was arguably beating Shawn on the feet. Merab looked very much improved since that Umar fight with his hands. He was catching O'Malley with these sort of combos while O'Malley had his hands down trying to sort of defend these takedowns. And it was unfortunate because Shawn was so scared of getting taken down that his hands were always by his hips, getting ready to get these underhooks in. But as a risk of that, Merab would just rush forward and tag Shawn with sort of a three-piece combo. But Shawn was actually landing some good shots as well. It was borderline even on the feet, but at the end of the round, Merab takes Shawn down and holds him there for about a minute or two, and secures the round. He just did a bit more that round. Round 2, stayed on the feet the whole round, which you think would mean that Shawn dominated in this round, but it was honestly kind of a coin toss to me. Merab was landing nice combos to the head of O'Malley and even clipped him on the chin a few times when he was backing up against the cage, but Shawn was landing more impactful shots and he was doing significantly more damage to the face of Merab. He landed one really nasty one to the side of the head that sort of forced Merab to back up and respect Shawn's power. Shawn also denied a lot of Merab's takedowns this round, so if they scored for that, he probably would have won this round more convincingly, but 2 of the judges gave it to Merab, so, you know, judges don't usually score on takedown defenses, which is kind of annoying, but it's whatever. And then we get into the 3rd round. Straight out the gate, Merab is pushing the pace on Shawn O'Malley, and is starting to wear some of the exhaustion on his face. Merab looks cool as a cucumber as usual, while Shawn, trying to sort of get up within that 1st round, gassed himself out a little bit. And outside of the striking, Merab took Shawn down easily this round, made him struggle to get back up to the feet, and then would pull him down again, and knee him to the body while he was getting up, knee him to the legs while he was getting up, just really doing anything to hurt O'Malley, make him sore, make him want to give up, exhaust him. And Shawn wasted a lot of energy just constantly trying to get to the feet this round, and they end up in north-south position after Merab takes him down, and Merab locks in this guillotine looking choke. It was kind of like a guillotine, kind of a ninja choke, and Shawn O'Malley tries to roll out of it, but while he's doing that, Merab sort of pushes O'Malley's head down into the canvas, into his arms, and locks in this weird choke. It said it was a north-south choke on Tapology. I don't actually know. It was like a ninja choke, but Shawn was facing upwards, lying on his back, so I don't really know what it was. But oh my god, Shawn O'Malley taps Merab, man. I think he's going to be the GOAT of he's arguably is the GOAT of the bantamweight division. His resume speaks for itself. 2 wins over Shawn O'Malley, a win over Piotr Yan, a win over Jose Aldo, a win over Henry Cejudo. Even early in his career, he's racked up some very, very impressive wins. And he just looks unstoppable. Ever since that Umar fight, even in the hands, he has majorly improved. He actually is a decent threat. He's not going to knock anyone out anytime soon, but he presents so much of a mixed threat that if you put your hands down to defend the takedowns, he'll hit you with a few shots on the top, and if you sort of hold up a high guard, he'll just take you down. He is sort of a well-rounded fighter. Shawn, on the other hand, oh god, I don't know, man. It was really sad to see him lose after he invested so much in this rematch. But I think he'll be back. He'll 100% be back. I think someone less wrestle heavy would be a nice opponent for him next. I think just style-wise, this fight was very unfortunate for him. But yeah, there's not much else to say about this one. It more just showed how good Merab is over sort of any flaws that Shawn showed. Shawn looked better, but Merab just improved so much since that last fight that even with all those improvements from Shawn, it just wasn't enough. But yeah, that's it, guys. That was UFC 316, Dvalishvili versus O'Malley 2. How do we do this card? Not amazing. I only got 62% of my predictions on who would win correct. And of those win predictions, I only got the method by 38%. Cam, oh my god, he made an ungodly comeback. Call it the power of a Shawn main event, I don't know, but he got 85% correct on this card. This might be an all-time high for him, but I don't even really think he cares much because of what happened in that main event. So, you know, small winnings, I guess. Where would I put this card? This card was actually really, really good. Initially, I was kind of a bit iffy on it, just because the name value wasn't particularly there. There weren't many ranked fights, but, you know, the performances of this card were great. There's no denying that. So I'm going to put it in the middle of A tier. I'm going to put it just above 313. While it wasn't as stacked, it did have better performances, but I'm going to put it below 315. Yeah, this card was very, very good, very solid. There were a few sort of moments where I was like, oh, like Patchy Mix, come on, man. He just didn't look good this card. The Pyfer fight was weirdly underwhelming. honestly, the prelims and early prelims kind of carried this card. But yeah, for the next couple of weeks, guys, we're eating good. Usman Buckley, Hill Roundtree, dude, Charles Ilya, KKF, Pantoja. So stay tuned. We've got a good couple of weeks coming up, and I'll see you next week in my Usman vs Buckley Fight Night breakdown. Bye bye.